As you've heard me mention in previous videos, I have a vole problem. Thinking voles. What I want to show you today is how I'm fixing the problem. I thought I'd give you guys a more close-up look at what I'm doing here and what I did last year for those hardware cloth baskets that I made for my tomatoes and my peppers, and the 2 trellises behind me right there. All right, so why don't we take a closer look? Okay, so what I've got here are just basic cinder blocks. Any type will do. These are, your standard 8-inch by 16-inch. And they're all various like styles, so they look different, but for this purpose it doesn't really matter. Then what I'm laying down first is hardware cloth, and this is galvanized hardware cloth, and it is, I believe, 1/4 inch openings, so that you can see. Oh, this is 1/2 inch. Yeah, so this is 1/2 inch. I thought these were 1/4 inch, but they're half. So 1/2 inch should be just fine. A vole can't fit through that. That's the only requirement, is that a vole can't fit through these holes. They won't bite them. They don't like it. My understanding is they don't like hard metal on their teeth, so if they can push it aside, they will, but they're not going to try to chew through it. And then this particular roll, so this is the 1/2 inch. You can do 1/4 inch if you want, but I think that one runs a little bit more expensive. But I haven't looked at that. And this is 36-inch wide. They do have different widths, and you can get a wider one, so you could do a wider bed. This bed is, because my cloth is only 36 inches, that means the inside of this is less than that. We're at 32 inches. You can kind of see that. I can get my hand out of the way. So 32 inches for the inside measurement. My outside measurement is about 48. So 4 feet. Come on. There we go. It's just under 4 feet. And I don't think that's even in the screen. So, but I made 4-foot beds for these, so this works within my spacing for the outside measurement of the brick. Just make sure that your brick is on top of this somewhat. It doesn't have to be all the way in, and I'll show you inside here in just a minute. As long as it's covering here. If you're going to plant stuff in here, then you need the cloth to go all the way across, because the gopher could come up, or vole could come up in those. I don't think they're going to, but we'll find out. If I start seeing mounds in these bigger ones, they're not going to want to go through the other ones, because the other ones I have are 3 holes, and they're much narrower. They're only like that wide, which a vole could fit through, but I don't think they're going to want to go through that. So basically what I'm doing is I rolled out. I'm at the end of this particular roll, and so I'm going to close this bed off, because that's all we can do this season. Next year, hopefully I'll be able to finish the row. I've got another 10 to 12 feet left of this row, and the full row is about 40 feet long. So basically all to do is roll this out, place the bricks down, and then I'm taking the dirt from the row and putting it in here, because that I've been working on building the soil up. It doesn't look that great right now. It's all dried out. Underneath is a lot more moist. But I've been working on building it up over the last couple years. But then I'm also putting a fresh layer, like I try to do every year, is put a fresh layer of manure, compost, or whatever compost mixture I'm making and have ready. Then I put a mulch layer on top of that. And then I'll move the mulch out of the way to create my rows and then plant inside that. And another thing I'm doing too is I have a grate that I put across here that I'm sifting because we got a lot of these larger rocks. And that sifts out the larger rocks. As you can see, there's still smaller rocks that are getting put in there. We have very rocky soil. I'm not too worried about it. It makes the soil very drainable, and I still am building up the soil. And those rocks will settle down over time and not be a problem and create a nice drain layer at the bottom. Now, if you don't have rocky soil, but maybe you've got clay soil, I still suggest sifting it just to break up the soil and make it a lot easier for your roots to grow around, especially your root vegetables. This is the grate that I've been using to sift. And I just set it across here. This is just a scrap piece of grate we happen to have laying around. I don't know that I would go buy one. I would probably just use some hardware cloth, build a frame around it to make your sift, and make it fit your wheelbarrow for doing this as a general thing in your garden. You may already have a setup like that. This is what I have for now. I don't have one built for my wheelbarrow yet. I've just been kind of doing it by hand. But I use this to sift everything in. And then when I'm done, I just lift it up and use a rake to level everything out. Then I put my manure and or compost down, and then my mulch on top of that, and then I'm ready to plant. All right, so you can see in here that the hardware cloth only comes in to these holes a little bit, and then I'm just filling. That's where I tend to dump the bigger rocks, as you can see, and then I fill it up with more dirt and stuff. If you want to plant things in here, if you've got these bigger openings, you can get away with a couple of things in here. Lettuce maybe. I did garlic and it didn't do well over in my tiny garden right off my deck. They don't really like it. I still have a few in there from last year, but they didn't want to grow very much. So, but if you do that, you're going to have to make sure that hardware cloth goes all the way to the other side. Otherwise, you're still going to have a potential of a vole coming through or a gopher. So this again, it's the same. It was off the same roll of hardware cloth, so 1/2-inch hardware cloth. And I had a big, like 4x4 chunk of wood, scrap chunk of wood. That's how I formed these to make them somewhat straight of a fold line. I just kind of wrapped it around the thing with one side hanging up. So I'd have the board sitting in this, and I just created a trough. And then I closed both ends. As you can see down here. So I closed both ends like this. This side I did put this in. I don't recommend this because you're going to have a lot of pokies here, and you could end up puncturing your soaker hose. But if you have a tougher hose, it wouldn't really matter too much. I was trying to get the water down so it wasn't going up and over these so much. That's why I did a test on these, just the ones on this side. And it didn't seem to water any better, cutting that little trough in there. The other side, I didn't. So, it seemed to water everything just fine. So I don't really recommend doing this. This was just a test that I did. And I'm very careful not to move the hose around too much, if at all. So just creating a basket like this The other options, I could do the same thing I did in that 4-foot bed, is I can clear all this out if I've already got these in place and lay down strips of hardware cloth around the T-posts and then just put brick all the way on either side, closing up the ends. But the most ideal is to do that, of course, way before you set up. But we didn't know we had voles or gophers here, so we didn't know we needed to do this. So we're having to go back and redo a lot of stuff. Now, let's go check out what I did for the baskets for the tomatoes and peppers in my high tunnel. Okay, so this is my jalapeno pepper that I put in a pot. I'm getting ready to put it back in the ground. This was last year's jalapeno. And as you can see, I just built a little square hardware cloth. So there's a bottom and then 4 sides. It's actually 2 pieces that I put together, 2 strips. And then they're supposed to have all of these around, folding it and keeping it closed. So I'll go probably take care of that when I transplant it. It looks like I got a couple that I missed, but I don't have the right gloves to do that right now. So you can do that option. And that's what I'm transplanting my tomatoes in. So these are the ones existing from last year. And I'll just dig a hole inside that, transplant my tomato over, and do that. I hope this was a helpful idea if you are also having problems with voles and gophers. That's all for today. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.